You and I with Rashmi Shetty is a human library audio podcast bringing in stories of people you and I can draw inspiration from. Welcome to the third season of this amazing story listening journey. Ordinary folks, extraordinary lives, their uniqueness and individuality, making them interesting to talk to and to listen to, each one of them completely connected to the voice in me and with motivational stories of moving beyond themselves to make a difference in the world. A reaffirmation of the fact: open your eyes wider. The world is far more beautiful when we acknowledge the presence of both you and I. July 1st happens to be the birth and death anniversary of the most famous physician of India, Dr. C.Roy. It's a tribute to his contribution to the health domain in our country that we celebrate 1st of July every year as National Doctors' Day. In commemoration of National Doctors' Day, in the last weekend of July, we have with us Dr. Sadiq Sikora, Director of Surgical Services at Sakra Institute of Digestive and HPB Sciences at Sakra World Hospital, Bangalore. He is a distinguished medical professional with an impressive background. An alumnus of the prestigious All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi, Dr. Sikora completed both his graduation and MS surgery training there before joining the Department of Surgical Gastroenterology at the renowned Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences in Lucknow. His contributions to the field of surgery are numerous and impactful. With more than 125 published articles and book chapters in peer-reviewed journals, Dr. Sikora has established himself as a leading voice in surgical research. Beyond his accomplishments in surgery, Dr. Sikora is deeply committed to education and mentorship. Currently, Dr. Sikora's focus lies on promoting non-technical skills for surgeons in collaboration with the Royal College of Surgeons, Edinburgh, and is advocating for gender equality in the surgical discipline. Outside of medicine, he has a passion for sports, particularly cricket, tennis, golf, and Formula One. He also enjoys traveling to destinations rich in cultural and historical significance. Listen in as Dr. Sadiq Sikora shares with us his inspirational journey and what he thinks are qualities that everyone needs in order to excel in whatever they do. Dr. Sadiq Sikora, it's such a pleasure having you on You and I with Rashmi Shetty. It's been ages since we've met. You've been doing wonderful work in the space of medicine and surgery in particular. But before we get there, I'd love to know what little Sadiq was like. Where did you grow up? What were your influences to the Dr. Sadiq Sikora that the world knows you today as? Welcome.
Thank you, Rashmi. It's a real pleasure. I know I've been following and we've had some interactions earlier. It's always great to have a chat with you, especially on this platform. It's been a long journey. I was born in a very small town, actually, in Maharashtra. I wonder whether you know a place called Chandrapur. It's next to Wardha. I was born there. My father was working at Ballarpur. There was a paper mill. There is still a paper mill there owned by Thapars. So he used to work there, and my mom grew up in Chandrapur and they got married and I was born in Chandrapur. So as you understand that it was a small town, Ballarpur, of course, was just a paper mill colony. My parents decided at the age of 4 to pack me off to Hyderabad, where my grandparents and a big joint family lived. So as a matter of fact, my father, he had 12 siblings, 3 sisters, and there were 10 brothers. And so I landed up in Hyderabad, all of 4 years old, to stay there and do my schooling. And it was a joint family, a lot of uncles, cousins. I was just one of the many just growing up over there, unnoticed, not in the limelight or being given special consideration. I think there was a tremendous sacrifice on the part of my parents to pack me off at age 4. But they were looking at ensuring that I get a good education over the years. That's how I landed up in Hyderabad. And soon, I realized that if you need to be someone, at that point, I realized this that you have to be something, become someone in this world. Failure is not an option. That's what I learned early. I also learned to be independent very early because although it was a big joint family, but they were all males in that, my uncles and all. Most of them were unmarried, and those who got married moved on. I quickly became very independent at that age. It was a rough ride to say being away from parents, being on your own. And the only beacon which I saw there was one of my uncle was a general practitioner, and he was a very successful general practitioner. And I saw that how his, uh, he was respected in the society, in the family, and it gave that impression, became that if I have to become someone, I should be a doctor. So that's where it started off very early. But soon after, I think in 70, we moved to Delhi because my dad changed his job and we moved to Delhi. Then we all stayed together. And I lucked out actually in Delhi. I joined Delhi Public School, R.K. Puram. So this was just starting, this branch of Delhi Public School. And we were the first batch in and the first batch out. So we were like, with each year, we would be promoted and the next class would join in after that. So that's how it was. And I think it was, as I said, I really lucked out because the school invested a lot in the students at that time because we were the first batch. We used to have special classes for all the entrance exams and all at that time. And it really helped me specifically, and all of us actually. This was the last batch of 11th. And then we had to do 1 year of pre-university and then get onto the professional college. And from the year after that, it was 12 plus the 10 plus 2 system which came in. School was great, learned a lot. And I think because of that input from the school and the influences of the teachers over there, you would understand, Rashmi, that there were very limited career choices at that point of time. Either you're doing engineering, you're doing medicine, or you're doing commerce. I took up biology and then did a year of pre-university. And I think the thing which changed my life was when I got admission in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, because it was very, very competitive, and there were only 35 open seats. And that was probably the highlight of my initial 18, 20 years of my life that I got admission in that. And then that changed my life, and that's where my career took off. And what I'm today is all because of the fact that I got an opportunity at All India Institute of Medical Sciences.
Clearly, you were a very good student academically. Were extracurricular activities also part of your growing up, which help you have a rounded personality, or you were just completely focused on academics to become the doctor you dreamt of?
No, there were a lot of extracurricular activities actually. I used to play cricket. I was in my school team and represented the school. So as long as I was in school, I was playing at that level, but not in college. But at All India Institute, we used to have intermedical competitions. So I played cricket in that. I was a secretary of my drama club in All India Institute of Medical Sciences.
Really?
We used to have a very active cultural programs to be organized, and directing and acting in plays and all were one of my interests at that time. I used to watch plays in Delhi. That time, plays were a big thing. Rashmi, interestingly, what happened was, if you know Mr. Raj Babbar,
Yes.
who was one of the very iconic stage actors at that time in Delhi. He was living just across our house in Bunirka, and we became quite good family friends, as a matter of fact. And Nadira Babbar, his wife, did play sometimes a role in helping us in our plays in at All India Institute. So it was there, extracurricular activities and sports. But had to work hard to get in to where all the competitive examinations which were there at that time. It was a mix of all, but after a certain stage, you had to work hard to get into where you had to.
True. Very true. And just a question from what you said, where your extracurricular activities, Doctor. Here you are in a team sport. Cricket is a team sport more than an individual sport. And so is staging a drama or theatre activities. You need everybody in and all having the sense of ownership and accountability in both of those. And when it came to academics, it was completely competitive, where it's a single person's war against society. So, what of each of this did you apply in taking yourself forward? Because in team, there is a lot of other people involving in your journey, while here it is an individual journey. Did the two meet at all? Did your lessons from them meet at all?
I think it may not be direct. What it does is that it takes your mind off the intense focus that you have, and you share other things with your colleagues in sport or drama. So that's what it takes away the tension and the focus and gives you a space to be not involved all the time with pursuing how to crack a competitive exam. So in that sense, it helped. But, I think the overwhelming point which was in my head was that failure is not an option, because I just knew that if I have to do something, I have to crack it. That was my driving motive, actually, to be very honest. And it continued after that, because I think in the profession which I have taken, failure is not an option. I also saw that my parents were very keen that I make something out of my life and not be, I'm not putting it in a derogatory manner or demeaning thing, but they wanted me to rise above all the people around whom I was interacting with and make a space for myself wherein I would have the opportunity to do something and excel, and also simultaneously provide comfort, relief, empathy to a lot of people. So I think all this put together made it mandatory for me to work hard to achieve the goal which I had set for myself.
And your journey in AIMS, as you progressed, were you clear that surgery is going to be one of the subjects you were leaning into right from the beginning, or was it a teacher who inspired you? What is it about surgery that drew you into it, and what were your years in AIMS like?
So, what happens when you go to a peak, then there is a fall. So, when I got admission at AIMS, I thought I've achieved everything. And sadly, after that, my performance was not as good as I would have liked. And you have to realize that we were competing 35, all of us, the best in what they were doing. And amongst those, there will be some which will be below that line, and I was one of those. I did finish my medicine training, but did not excel. Then after that, we have our internship where we go through the clinical. And I think that again was my second life-changing experience. That when I did my surgery internship, I came across two individuals. One was a senior resident called Dr. Arun Gupta, and another was my friend, colleague, my hostel mate, and my, in some way, surgical guru, Sabyasachi Bal. So when I went there, they also saw something in me, and they would let me do surgery under supervision. So as an intern, when I got to do surgery, I realized that as a surgeon, I can do things which require the skill, and that skill which I possess, and if I hone that, will have a result in the outcome of the patient. So that's directly I'm being responsible for that. And I enjoyed doing surgery actually. And with these two gentlemen, uh, it became, it's almost like I realized that it is my calling. Surgery is my calling, and no other specialty would fulfill my aspirations, my goals, except for surgery. So that's the time I realized that I have to do surgery. Then that was the second peak. Then suddenly I realized that now, if I have to do surgery, I have to be good at it. And then suddenly that second kick came in. The relationship between surgeon and the patient is a very unique relationship, Rashmi, actually. It's a burden. Along with it, it is a challenge.
Yes.
Because because you take this onerous responsibility of ensuring the well-being and curing a patient who's suffering with an ailment, and you take this when the patient is anesthetized and is not in his full awareness. And therefore, it's a burden and is a challenge simultaneously. So it's a very, very special and a unique relationship. It takes two to tango. Unless you have a deep trust of the patient, so the patient has to have a deep trust in you,
Yes.
and it should be a unconditional trust, and you understand the situation that the patient is, and in that the patient has to show that trust, and the surgeon has to take that responsibility that I am your protector, I am your advocate, I will be the person who will ensure that whatever has to be done is in your best interest. These two, from the patient and the surgeon, thought processes make it a very, very special relationship.
Yeah, that's so true. I think trust is the biggest glue there, where the patient has on the doctor, on the surgeon especially. But surgery per se, doctor, is a super focused specialization because the body is magical, and I'm sure every time you open a human body, the magic of how things are working with such minute connections must be an experience that you never forget. But I want you to go back to that first moment when you got into surgery, the first time you did an assisted surgery. What is it that went through your mind that gave you that kick to say that this is what I want to do? What is it that told you that, okay, this is what I'm going to pursue further?
There are times, there is a situation when you say you've signed in,
Yeah.
you've been sort of baptized, something like that. So there's this incident I would like to share, that I'd completed my surgical training and I was a senior resident. So as a senior resident, you take responsibility of patient treatment, and you are a via media between consultants and the patient, and you take a lot of responsibility. So one day a patient came with a profuse bleed and blood vomiting. Uh, and I was on call. The patient we had stabilized, and then suddenly the patient bled again, a massive bleed, and his blood pressure dropped, heart rate went up, and all. So we rushed him to the endoscopy suite, to see where the bleeding is from. By the time we reached the endoscopy suite, the patient had an arrest, cardiac arrest. So we immediately revived the patient, and we were able to sort of get back his vital parameters. And we realized that he has to be rushed to the operating theater. So from floor 2, this was maybe around 11 p.m. or so, if I remember correctly, was shifted to floor 7 at All India Institute to the operating theater. Now, my consultant, I informed him, and he had to come from some distance. And he said, "You go ahead." He had that confidence in me. And I went in and I did what I had to do. I opened him up, found the bleeder, sort of controlled the bleeding, and you could see the change in color, which comes with controlling the bleeding, and the change in the parameters which you see. And it's a real high. You can never get that high by any other means, that you were down in the dumps, you are thinking you have lost the patient, and then you have been able to revive and take care of the problem to ensure that there would be no further bleeding and the patient is well. And the patient recovered after that, and whatever procedure had to be done was performed by me in that patient. And what happened in that is that it told me that I have come of age and I can take care of problems. It also gave me that thing that how you can influence a life. I thought we have lost him. We were able to get him back and get him back to a completely normal life. So that was the power of what I was in, and which was I've got by the training and the skill which I've acquired in the training. And I realized that I need to hone that as much as possible to benefit as many people possible by that skill and knowledge that I would. And that, pushed me to, it's like, you want to excel after that. And because you want to excel for yourself, and you want to excel because you want to provide the best to the person who comes to you. And you should not fall short of that. That was the idea. And therefore, these things put me in a position that I should continue to do and uphone my skill so as to benefit a maximum number of people. So as you said that, that part told me, and it's a very focused thing. I mean, you would have heard of surgeons having music in the operating theater.
Yes.
There's a lot of chatter in the operating theater. But in my operating theater, I don't like music. I don't speak to anyone. I speak very less. And it's a quiet, some may say a deathly quiet, but I would say a focused silence, which happens in my operating theater.
Yeah, yeah. No, in fact, it's magical to even imagine how much of focus a surgeon needs when he's cutting something as delicate as the human body, because there are so many arteries that run through our body, and a wrong incision anywhere can lead to other complications. So, in a country like India, doctors are treated like gods. It's like they pray to the doctor, and you can see the comparison, because my cousin in the States always says that it's such a contrast when you come from India to a country like States, where every patient talks to you one-on-one terms and asks you questions about your experience. But in India, you never see that, because there's such complete trust in the doctor the moment the doctor is referred. So, in your experience, doctor, what have been some of those cases which actually even the patient didn't have hope and it got revived? And some patients come in, absolutely, the surgery goes on really well, nothing that you expect, no events, and then it ends up being a complicated case. So, are there some stories where you recall and are grateful that you're doing this amazing job in the field of surgery over the years that have accumulated in your mind to give you that joy and gratitude in what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Rashmi, that's the crux of this whole discussion, I think. Emily Dickinson wrote that surgeons have to be careful because when they hold a knife and under the fine incisions that they make stirs the culprit life. So, as you said, that you need to be very, very careful, focus, plan. And so that is the first part, that you need to plan everything very well. As I say that, the practice of surgery in many ways has changed over the years from the time I joined surgery to what it is today. And there is a tremendous change, as a matter of fact, in the practice of surgery. Change in how we do surgery, change in how there is an interaction with the patient and the surgeon. So if I take that first, that, you said that they treat you as gods or demigods and look at you to resolve their problems. There are two aspects of it. One is the paternalistic form of surgical or medical care, which used to be the thing in India right from time immemorial. In a paternalistic manner of treatment that you offer, the surgeon or the physician is the sole knowledge bearer in that. And then they communicate what needs to be done, and the patient has that complete unconditional trust and accepts what has been offered as the treatment to be carried out. But over the years, it has changed for good in some ways and challenging in many other ways. So I realized that when I had a stint in the US in about early 90s, when I was there from 94 to 96 in Pittsburgh. And as you said, what your cousin said, that there is a lot of patient autonomy we got to see over there. Patients make the decisions after being informed of all the options. And when I went there, that was the most important thing I learned there about patient autonomy and how you have to be an advocate for the patient, but you cannot impose what you have to do or what you suggest for the patient. When I came back, I tried to implement that, and gradually over the years, it has become what we now call as shared decision making. The shared decision making, what it involves, Rashmi, is that we inform the patient about all options and the outcomes, possible outcomes of each option. We give them some information in terms of percentages and all of the outcome, complications, processes, algorithms. And then you leave it largely to the patient in consultation with you to make a decision. So what happens in this is a lot of times it becomes very impersonal, the care. You've given that, and now it's up to you to choose what it is. There is the empathy factor goes down, actually, to be fair, and it just becomes like a cookie cutter approach to everyone. Like, you have this, you can do this, and you choose. A lot of time, the patients are lost when you are given this option also. And then when they see that they have to take a decision, they are inundated with a lot of other influences. And more importantly, it is the social media. And of course, not only social media, but social circle. Because a lot of times I say that the neighbors aren't what has undergone, and what they say is the solution to a problem carries more weight than a doctor's if you don't have trust in the doctors. But you have to understand the patient is a milieu of all these things, their experiences, their expectations, what they see or hear from the social media, from their friends, colleagues, so on and so forth. And then with all this, they come to the doctor. And if there is an element of mistrust, which, to be very honest, is a lot of times propagated by the society, by the media, that doctors, this. We can talk about that. But it creates that additional mistrust in the patient. And, sometimes you would be surprised that the interaction becomes interrogative and a little bit aggressive than a consultative approach. But I don't blame the patients in this, because that's the way microenvironment in which we live. And we need to find a balance between the paternalistic approach and the shared decision making, because at times you need to advise them what is the best option in that.
Mm.
But the challenge, Rashmi, sometimes with this comes is that they have incomplete information.
Yes. Yeah.
The comprehension of that information is very difficult. You pick up one thing, that's not the ultimate truth, because there are many, many other components about that. And then to add to all this are the multiple opinions which people have the right and exercise their right to take.
Mm.
But these become very challenging at the end of it for eventual decision making for the patient, actually.
Yeah.
So we need to, deal with all this when we are having a consultation, and it's a challenge, to be very honest.
True, true. And since you brought social media, I'd love to bring that question in here as well, where today there are a lot of influencers on social media, and not necessarily that everything they say is the truth or researched fact. And so there are a lot of patients, I'm sure, who come into your consulting room with half-baked knowledge that they picked from social media and assume that that is the truth. So countering them, making them understand that what is given is just half of the knowledge that is there on social media, is not complete. How angry do you get? How irritated do you get? And how easy is it for people to understand? Because today everyone has access to social media, be it your smartphone or your laptop. And I'm sure when they open up their laptop with the questions that are there, a lot of doctors have told me that they get put off because it's very irritating when the knowledge is half baked. So, how do you handle, or what would you like to tell people who read up what is available on social media without enough backing when they come into a consultation to build that trust? How is it possible for young doctors to do that today? Because patients have definitely changed with
Yeah. No,
exposure.
absolutely. I mean, this change is there. We can't do away with.
Yeah.
People have access, which is a good thing. My only thing is, it's very difficult for patients to figure out which is the information, is it a complete vetted information?
Mm.
Because it's such an unregulated platform
Yeah.
that anybody can put in anything, and there is no way one can sort of vet that and say that this is the right information. Not only that, Rashmi, what happens is in a complex situation, there are so many considerations in treatment for a patient that you can't get by reading an article. And that's what you gain by all these years of experience, that the information which you have to vet it, you have to sort of figure out that what is applicable to a particular patient, because patients are not laptops or computers that you just feed in one information and get the outcome as you want. So what I encourage people to read, but they should read reliable, like well established uh, sites which provide medical information. That information also, they should sort of have a consultation and do not interrogate the doctor that, oh, but this said this and you are saying this. It should be that you may bring out your concerns or issues which you didn't understand in a manner to convey to the doctor that I have this information, but how does it apply to me? And not in the sense that, oh, but why not this? Or I read that this is how it is done. So the doctor sitting across has the responsibility to ensure that he or she offers a solution to the problem based on what is best for that patient and not for that disease if it is written in a chapter of a book.
Yeah.
because it doesn't address all the things. So I encourage them to read, but when it becomes interrogative and argumentative, that's when I get a little sort of put off. And then I tell them that, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to answer the questions which a site on social media has raised. I will tell you what my opinion is, and then it is up to you to take my opinion or not, right? The 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 real challenge is when they take this information and they seek multiple consultations to suit the opinion which they want. And that's a very dangerous thing to do. And I tell a lot of patients that please don't continue to seek consultation to suit what you want to do, that eventually say, see, this person is telling me what I'm thinking. So you seek consultations to sort of allay your concerns, allay your doubts, find what is best for you. One of the challenge with multiple consultations, Rashmi, is this, that they have taken two consultations. If there is a contrasting opinion which comes through, they are lost at which one is to follow. And oftentimes, I am asked that, but that doctor said this and you are saying this, which one is true? And that puts the doctor on the spot.
Yeah.
So I have to tell them that, these are the potential problems of multiple consultations, because the ball is in your court and you have to decide which opinion to take. But I am not in no position to uh, comment on the other person's opinion and say whether it is right or wrong. That person has an opinion and has given to you. And now, unfortunately, you have to, it's tough for the patient. I understand that. But it's also very challenging for the doctors in the current scenario. So that's the change which I was talking about, that, from the paternalistic to this shared decision making. But in that, the influences of social media, which is an unregulated platform, may sometimes do more harm than good. So the patients, when they seek the information, they have to be very careful where they are seeking it from, whether it is corroborated at multiple sites, and then whether it is applicable to you. That's the key, actually, that whether it is applicable to you, because that's the job at the end of the day I'm supposed to do, that what is the apt treatment for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so beautifully said and such an important point. So, Doctor, the question that I'm very curious about is where a patient came to you with a lot of complications, and you're doing something which is very divine. Like I said, your hands are magical, and the hands of a surgeon are supposed to be absolutely precise with the way they work. So, one is my question on the magic of the human body. How much does it fascinate you? Because there are many things about the body still, in spite of the robotic surgery levels that we have gone to today with artificial intelligence coming in, still there are elements of the body that we don't know about. And as far as a story or a case with a patient where it was unforgettable for you and you are forever grateful doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think you made a point at some stage when you said that, you may do the best operation and you come out of the operating theater thinking that this is the best I could have done.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily ensure the best outcome, to be very honest. Most of the time it would, but not always. And that's the enigma of a human body, that how it responds in a particular scenario, the best surgery, the best joining which I could have done, I have done, and still it may lead to complications. And on the other hand, many times I do a procedure and I say, I could have done better. I could have, done a little bit of this more and a little bit of this more, and I'm dissatisfied or not completely happy with how it has gone. And you would be surprised that those patients go home at the earliest without any complications. And that's what makes you humble all the time. That, you may do whatever you can do, but at the end of the day, it's how the body responds to what you have done. And that realization, comes with time. In the beginning, I used to have sleepless nights when I would have a complication in a patient. I would run the whole surgery through my mind that where I could have done anything differently. And I would have sleepless nights till the patient gets better and go home. Then over the years, gray hair come in, you understand how things work, and you say that you have one opportunity to do what you can do the best way possible. And then you hope that the body heals in the manner you would want it. That's the mantra of being at peace when you do surgery. Otherwise, you would always be flustered, frustrated, anxious that how the outcome would be. Mm. And you mentioned, that anything which tells you that, this is worth what it is, which you're doing. And it's a once in a lifetime case. You do it. You may not have the same outcome every time, but in that patient, it was destined to be like that, and you are eternally grateful. So I had this about 55, 58-year-old advocate from Andhra who had come to me with a tumor in the liver. And it was a large tumor, and it was going into the large veins. So there is a vein called inferior vena cava on which the liver sits. And that vein carries all the blood from the body into the heart. And then the veins from the liver join that big vein so that the blood from the liver can go flow into the heart again. And the tumor was going through the vein into the large vein in the back of the liver and through it into the heart. The tumor was going into the heart. This kind of situation usually is untreatable, and you often don't give a long sort of life expectancy to these patients. But this patient told us that, I am prepared to do anything. I trust you unconditionally about what you can do or what you would do. But I want you to do something for my disease. I don't want to just die waiting when the end comes to me. So I give you full uh, my consent to do whatever you can. So we took up this. It is something which is not often done. So we got together with the cardiothoracic team, and what we did is we put this patient on a bypass machine. Then we cooled his body down to 16 degrees centigrade, and we completely stopped his heart. So this patient was literally dead. We called this complete circulatory arrest. And for that 20-25 minutes, the cardiac surgeon worked on the heart, and we removed the tumor which was extending into the heart. And then once that is done, we brought back the patient with the circulatory flow and get the patient back with all his heart pumping and all. But the job is not complete because the liver tumor still has to be removed. And when we put the patient on bypass, we have to give blood thinners so that the blood doesn't clot. And to operate the liver tumor with blood thinners is inviting God's wrath because it will continue to bleed, bleed, bleed. Of course, we have methods to overturn that. So we did that. We used some special equipment to minimize the blood loss, and I removed the half of the liver with the tumor, with the extension into the large vein. And finally, we were able to remove this. This patient made a remarkable recovery, Rashmi. We were thinking that he may have some uh, mental disturbances because of the being in complete circulatory arrest and all that. But he woke up immediately. He was coherent, completely all limbs moving, and he was doing well. The best part was he did well, he recovered, he went home, but he is alive 10 years plus with that tumor, no evidence of any disease. And it's nothing short of a miracle, I think, because the type of tumor that it has, you don't give life expectancy more than 3 months to those patients. And this patient is alive with no disease after more than 10 years. I don't think I can, you know, be thankful enough to be doing this job and having this kind of an experience, because this tells me that my life is worth, at the end of the day, something, you know. And I've even this one patient, if I've done this, it's probably the purpose of my life. So that's a remarkable experience which I have had. We've published this, and it's one of the few cases in world literature which have been treated and who's alive for so long.
Wow.
So that's what it is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And another time when not only the country, but I'm saying world over, globally, doctors were glorified was the pandemic. It was something that nobody anticipated, nobody knew what to do. And that is when everyone realized the value of doctors. Each of us took our own reflections from the pandemic because it hit each one of us very differently at a very, very personal level. And everyone had their lessons to carry for life. What have your reflections from the pandemic been, Doctor? I'm sure you must have learned a lot more of life in those few years than you did about life itself prior to that.
Absolutely. I think it is a surreal experience to survive a pandemic. And to experience in your lifetime a pandemic is something uh, scary. It's life-changing in terms of how you look at life and the nebulousness of the existence that any time life may end. And when so many people were affected by it, it also tells that, nobody is safe. And it just needs one moment, one incident for you to, for your life to end. So, we've had several pandemics over the centuries, the in the 20th century, the Spanish flu, which caused the highest number of loss of lives, multiple pandemics of cholera, the SARS infection, virus infection. But I think the COVID pandemic for people of our generation is something we would always remember, because all those who have survived this pandemic, it is a life-changing experience for them. People who have experienced COVID, for them, I think I mean, I'm not talking of mild COVIDs, which I have had and many people have had, but the severe COVID, which people have had, I think they are still struggling with depression, anxiety, sleeplessness, and so many other, mental afflictions, having survived this. For a doctor, to be very honest, it was a scary time, because you have to be there for the patients who are in trouble, and you're scared that what if you get it, right? So every day that we went to work, that was so in the first wave, the overwhelming thing was how to protect yourself and how to give care to the patients who come with COVID. And I've seen doctors going through hell, actually. The protective gear which was there was so sort of, it made people exhausted. It made people, you were uh, bound in this multiple layers of clothing and this, you're sweating inside, you can't change again and again. And that means you are without fluids, water, food, and any toilet break for a period of 8 hours if they are doing a duty. And it was tough, I think, for the people who were at the forefront of this. We had problems in terms of how to operate on patients who had COVID. And, the whole world was looking at ways and means to prevent uh, people getting COVID because of exposure during surgery, both to the anesthetists, to the surgeons, and all. So it was quite a challenging experience for us, and to be very honest, a scary experience, and always wondering whether you would survive this or not. The second wave brought its own problems of, overriding infections, mucormycosis, because we found some treatment, but it had its other consequences and all. And apart from this, each one experienced loss of near and dear ones. So I lost a young cousin who was a doctor in Saudi Arabia. He was working there and he got COVID and he died without his family by his side. So we had that experience. I lost a friend in the first wave of COVID. And Rashmi, he would call me from the ICU every night. And it was so distressing to hear his uh, problems he was encountering during this. And that's the best help we could provide to him. And we lost him. So it was a real surreal experience. I have videos of traveling to the hospital with not a soul on the road, from this whole thing. And normally, what would take me 30 minutes or 25 minutes, I would reach there in 7 minutes or 8 minutes. So this COVID pandemic is an experience which I don't think our generation is going to ever forget. The doctors are ever going to forget. And we are ever thankful that we survived. And we are very, my heartfelt condolences to all those lives which we have lost. As a matter of fact, across the world in this pandemic, 70 lakh lives were lost. And India, I think about 5 to 8 lakh lives were lost during the pandemic due to COVID-19. So it's a calamity which, I mean, we are fortunate to have survived, actually.
Yeah, true. But it was also a reality check to most of us, at least in the world, who were thinking that we are immortal. And we thought all that we have achieved is something that needs celebration, while it showed us the fickleness of life in seconds.
Absolutely.
So I think it gave us the biggest reality check to understand and value relationships, which people never valued till then and had taken the material world a lot more seriously than what really mattered. And talking about such moments, are there some unforgettable moments in your life, Doctor, that you would call as your milestones that bring that smile back on your face and make you really happy with what life has given you?
I think simply the opportunity to influence in a positive manner the lives which I come across. I think so. I'm ever grateful for that opportunity because, very few people, when I say very few, means all the community, medical community, gets this opportunity to do it. But to me, because I've had these experiences which I've shared with you, I love what I do. I'm very passionate about the surgery process itself. And having had the opportunity to benefit a large number of people and see the gratitude and the thankfulness which comes from the blessings which come from them, it just makes you get up the next day with renewed vigor. You're right that in this whole process, sometimes we forget the value of our near and dear ones because we get so consumed by what you're doing. Because this speciality, if you don't keep yourself in check, consumes you. And if it consumes you, then you lose sight of what are other important things in life. And yes, I'm guilty of that. I think I'm quite guilty of that. And maybe it's not too late to correct that and have some kind of a sort of balance in that. But till now, I think if you ask my family, they would have said that that is your first and the last love, which is surgery. So I don't think that's going to change according to them. I have no regrets, to be very honest. And the other interesting thing which it gives me is the opportunity to train the next generation of people. Because I think it is our responsibility to ensure that the art, the knowledge is transferred to the next generation. To be very honest, I love sharing my knowledge and skill with the people who are with me. And I take it very seriously, actually. And over the years, the number of people who have had training with me or had the good fortune to be part of their skill development, it's so satisfying and joyful to watch them do well in their careers and put their skills to the best again for the patients. There can't be any other feeling of fulfillment to see that you've been able to share what you have with the next generation to ensure that there is continuity of care. Because to be very honest, surgery is a specialty which cannot be learned from the books. It has to be learned hands on, at least watching and interacting. There's a cliched thing which we talk about surgery, Rashmi, and at the risk of raising many eyebrows, I'll still quote that you learn in surgery first how to do surgery, then you learn when you should do surgery, and finally you learn when not to do the surgery. So when you come to that stage, that means you are a complete, fully developed surgeon. That's what surgery has given me.
At least three qualities that a person aspiring to be a surgeon should know that he or she should possess when they get into the profession.
I think from my experience, I think I would tell everyone who's aspiring to be a surgeon that the only path to success is the path of pursuing excellence. You have to be passionate. You have to aim for excellence. There is no option of failure. And you can sum it up in this one in what we call ikigai. You find that passion and you excel in that. So the first thing, success will come, but excellence is what you need to pursue. If you want to pursue excellence, you need to be able to have the will to learn. Because we never talked about that, but things have changed. And in my lifetime, I have come from a test which is now bedside ultrasound. But in our time, ultrasound has come, and surgery has evolved from minimal invasive to robotic, laparoscopic robotic. You have to be constantly be able to reinvent, evolve, and learn new things. Unless you are prepared to do that, you will be a misfit. And the final thing is grit. I think grit is very, very essential for a surgeon because grit includes a passion, perseverance, tremendous hard work, and all this not over a short term, but over a long term period. to achieve your goals. You need to have grit to be a surgeon, a character you need to build in that so that you can be successful. And in general, I want to say one thing, Rashmi. I want people to realize that there are some things which we expect, we don't get. I have this quote for me to remind myself that rights without responsibilities. So if you want to exercise your rights, but you don't realize the responsibilities which come with it is futile. Responsibilities without authority. For example, police, you have so many responsibilities, but the authority is not there to exercise that authority, to take action and all. This is just an example, but it's there in all walks of life. So you expect people to fulfill the responsibility, but you realize they don't have the authority to do that. So it is frustrating for those. And finally, authority without accountability is the death knell. And you see this every day. People exercise their authority and they are unaccountable for that. So rights without responsibilities, responsibilities without authority, and authority without accountability is something which we need to remember this so as to be able to do well in any walk of life.
I normally end my conversation with 3 life lessons, Doctor, but you've given us so many. Beyond this, are there any life lessons that you carry close to your heart which you think you'd like to share?
No, as I said, actually, these are my lessons for people, pursue excellence, be able to improve continuously and have grit. And whatever profession you choose, especially surgery, you need to be passionate about it. There are no half measures in surgery.
Yeah.
You need to be in it fully because of the responsibility you take. And as I said, that it has given me tremendous satisfaction. I often say the patients who didn't trust me, they taught me patience. The patients who trusted me unconditionally, they gave me a sense of fulfillment. The patients I could cure, they provided me an opportunity for immense joy and satisfaction. And for those whom I failed, they showed me to be humble. Humility was what I learned from them. Somebody said that medicine or surgery specifically is an uncertain science and is an art of probability. It's always probability. We do our best, but the outcomes depend a lot on how the body. But I must say that if there is trust, I have seen positive mind frame of the patients. They trust the process, the doctor. 100% I observe that the outcomes are fantastic in that group of patients. But those who are conditional trust, who are always not very confident of what is going to happen, we end up with problems. It's a hard reality which I've learned in this profession.
And I think summing up, the art of surgery and the heart of a surgeon are 2 very important requirements for anyone in whatever profession that they do to get in the excellence that you suggested we should all strive for, and the empathy that we need to carry. Beautifully said, Doctor, and thank you so much. Honored to have had you on You and I with Rashmi Shetty. May your tribe increase. And I know it's almost a month late, but happy Doctor's Day, because every day I'm sure you have created the moments where you have smiles and gratitude from people telling you, happy you've come into our lives. So thank you for what you do, and God bless you and continue to inspire everyone you meet. Stay blessed.
Thank you very much, Rashmi, to having me on this You and I. It's great experience sharing my thoughts and my journey with you. Thank you so much.
With that, we complete this episode of You and I with Rashmi Shetty. Do let us know if you know inspirational people whose story needs to be heard. You can write in at rashmi.the3rd@gmail.com. That is rashmi.thethirdeye@gmail.com.